The heart monitor kept its steady rhythm in the dark, sharp and cold against the silence of the intensive care room. Ava Monroe stood beside the bed with a chart in her hand and the smell of antiseptic in her nose, checking numbers she already knew by heart. Then the man in the bed moved. His fingers twitched, his lips parted, and in a voice dry from 5 lost years, he whispered her name. Ava. She went still. For one terrible second, the whole room seemed to tilt, because the man opening his eyes under the dim hospital lights was not just another long-term coma patient. He was Asher Vale, billionaire CEO, media legend, and the husband who had broken her heart so completely she had spent 5 years learning how to breathe without him. And down the hall, tucked inside her locker behind spare scrubs and folded notes, were 2 photos of the twins he did not know existed. Ava forced herself to move. "Mr. Vale." Her voice came out calm, even though her pulse was slamming in her throat. "Can you hear me?" His gray eyes struggled to focus. They drifted across the room, caught on the machines, the IV lines, the shadowy corners, and then landed on her face. Confusion filled them first, then recognition, then something dangerously close to relief. "Ava," he said again, rough and weak, "is that really you?" She should have called for the attending doctor first. She should have stepped back and let someone else take over. But training moved faster than pain. "I need you to stay still," she said, setting the chart aside and leaning over to check his vitals. "You've just woken up. Do not try to sit up yet." He blinked hard. "Why are you wearing scrubs?" Her hand tightened around the bed rail. "Can you tell me where you are?" He swallowed. "A hospital." "That's right. What happened?" His voice cracked. "Why are you here? Why are you calling me Mr. Vale?" Because that was safer. Because saying Asher felt like reaching into an old fire. "You were in an accident," she said. "You need to stay calm." His brow pulled tight. "An accident?" He tried to push himself up and immediately winced, falling back against the pillows with a sharp breath. Ava pressed a hand near his shoulder without touching him. "Don't!" He turned his head toward her again, still fighting through the haze. "What's the last thing you remember?" "That's my question," she said quietly. He closed his eyes. His face tightened with effort. For a long moment, the room held nothing but the hum of machines and the faint hiss of oxygen. Then he spoke. "I remember dinner." His voice was distant now, reaching backward. "That little place on the water. You ordered lemon pasta and stole half my bread." His mouth moved with the ghost of a smile. "You were laughing at me because I spilled wine on my tie." Ava's breath caught. That dinner had been real. She remembered the rain on the windows, the candlelight, the way he had reached across the table just to touch her wrist, the way she had thought she was loved. He opened his eyes again and looked at her with open warmth, the kind that had once ruined her for everyone else. "And then I remembered driving," he whispered. "It was raining. I was thinking about you, about us. Then nothing." Ava felt the blood drain from her face. That memory was old. Too old. "What year do you think it is?" she asked. He told her. He was wrong by 5 years and 3 months. The air in the room turned heavy. Ava hit the emergency button with one hand while keeping her eyes on him. "The doctor is coming." Asher stared at her now, confusion beginning to sharpen into fear. "What do you mean the doctor is coming? Ava, what year is it?" She did not answer. Not because she could not. Because once she said it aloud, everything that came after would become real. The door opened fast. Dr. Mercer entered with 2 nurses behind him, their shoes quick against the polished floor. Ava stepped back at once, forcing herself into professionalism while her heart was still shaking loose inside her chest. "Mr. Vale," Dr. Mercer said, moving to the bedside. "I'm Dr. Mercer. You're at St. Gabriel Medical Center. You've been unconscious for a long time. We need to ask you a few questions." Asher barely looked at him. His eyes kept searching for Ava. "How long?" he asked. Dr. Mercer hesitated only a second. 5 years. Asher stared. "No. I'm afraid yes." "That's impossible." His voice was weak, but the disbelief in it was sharp. "I was driving home. I was just with my wife." The room went very still. Ava felt one of the nurses glance at her. "Doctor," Mercer kept his tone careful. "Memory loss after a trauma like this is not unusual." Asher ignored him. He looked straight at Ava. "Tell him." She did not move. "Ava." His voice was softer now, more dangerous because of it. "Tell him you're my wife." The words hit her like a blow to the chest. She forced herself to meet his eyes. "We were married." His face changed. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, each word slow and painful, "we divorced 5 years ago." He stared at her as if she had spoken another language. "No. It's true." "No." This time the word came out harder, stronger. "That's not possible." Dr. Mercer stepped in. "Mr. Vale, I need you to stay calm. Stress right now is not good for your recovery." But Asher's whole focus was fixed on her now. "Ava," he said, voice shaking, "why would I divorce you?" "Because you looked me in the eye and told me loving me had been a mistake. Because you sent lawyers instead of showing up. Because 3 weeks later, I sat on the bathroom floor with a positive pregnancy test in my hand and no way to reach you. Because our son has your eyes. Because our daughter smiles like you." She said none of it. "You don't remember," was all she managed. "No, I don't." His breathing was turning uneven now. "I remember loving you. I remember wanting a life with you. I remember us talking about children." Ava looked away. The monitor started climbing. Dr. Mercer gave instructions. One nurse adjusted a line. Another checked the screen. Ava should have left then. She knew she should have, but she could not seem to make her feet move. Asher's voice dropped, raw and confused. "What happened to us?" That question had followed her for 5 years. Through pregnancy, through labor, through sleepless nights with 2 newborns crying at once, through nursing school and double shifts and the little apartment she had built with scraped-together strength. What happened to us? She still did not fully know. Before she could answer, the door opened again. A tall woman in an elegant cream coat stepped inside, her perfume too rich for the sterile room. Evelyn Vale, Asher's mother. Her sharp eyes found her son first, and for one brief moment, true emotion cracked her polished face. "Asher." Then she saw Ava. The warmth vanished. Her expression turned hard as glass. "What is she doing here?" Asher looked from his mother to Ava, lost in the middle of a truth too large to hold. "Mother, what is going on? Why is everyone acting like she's a stranger?" Evelyn's gaze never left Ava. "Because she is not your wife anymore." Ava felt the old wound open all over again. Asher looked back at her, pale and shaken and searching, and for one impossible moment, under the dim lights and the cold sound of machines, he looked like a man who had just woken up in a world where everything he loved had been taken. Ava stood there in her nurse's uniform, with his mother in the doorway, and 5 years of silence between them, and thought of the 2 children waiting at home who had no idea their father had just spoken her name. The next morning, rain streaked down the tall windows of Ava's apartment in Silver Bay, turning the city outside into a blur of gray and silver. She stood at the kitchen counter in her scrubs, tying back her hair, while the coffee maker hissed and sputtered beside her. Her mother, Helen, was packing lunches at the table. 2 small lunchboxes sat open beside 2 very different children. Noah wanted everything neat. Apple slices in one corner, crackers stacked in a line, sandwich cut into exact squares. Lily wanted color, strawberries, goldfish crackers, a napkin with little stars on it, because stars made food taste happier. Ava watched them from the doorway of the hall for one quiet second before the twins saw her. "Mommy," Lily said, running to her in pink socks and a crooked nightshirt, dark curls bouncing. "Grandma says I can wear my red boots even though it's not raining inside." "It is definitely not raining inside," Ava said, lifting her onto her hip anyway. Noah walked over more slowly, already dressed, holding a library book against his chest. "Are you working in the brain floor again?" Ava kissed the top of his head. "I am." He nodded like he was storing that fact for later. She loved them so much it hurt. That was the problem. Everything hurt now. Because yesterday the father they had never met had opened his eyes and said her name like no time had passed at all. Because he remembered loving her. Because he did not remember breaking her. And because she had gone home with his voice still inside her head. "What's wrong?" Helen asked softly, once the twins were busy with breakfast. Ava reached for her coffee. It was too hot, but she welcomed the sting. "He keeps looking at me like I'm still his wife." Helen paused. "And how does that make you feel?" "Like I'm 27 again. Like I'm standing in that penthouse waiting for my life to end. Like part of me is cruel enough to want him to suffer and weak enough to want him to hold me." "Confused," she said. Helen gave her a long look, the kind only mothers knew how to give. "And scared?" Ava let out a breath. "Yes." Noah slid into the kitchen then, serious gray eyes lifted to her face, eyes so much like Asher's that some days she still had to prepare herself before looking at him too long. "Mom, are you sad?" Ava crouched so they were eye level. "Just tired, sweetheart." He studied her. "That means something happened." Before she could answer, Lily climbed into her lap from the side. "When grown-ups say they're tired, it means feelings." Helen turned away fast, hiding a smile. Ava almost laughed despite the tightness in her chest. "Maybe a few feelings." Lily nodded as if that settled it. "You should take a snack. Feelings are worse when people forget snacks." At the hospital, Ava kept herself busy on purpose. Medication checks, rounds, patient reviews, staff questions. She moved through the neurological wing with the steady pace of someone who knew exactly what she was doing, and maybe that was why nobody looked too closely at her face. But by noon, there was no avoiding room 417. Dr. Mercer handed her a chart at the nurse's station. "His vitals are stable. Cognitive function is good. Physical weakness is expected. I want him monitored closely for stress response." Ava took the chart. "Understood." He lowered his voice. "You can still ask to be removed from the case." "No, that was quick. I'm the one who recognized the changes before he woke up. I know his history better than anyone in this unit." Dr. Mercer watched her a moment. "That isn't exactly the only history involved." Ava held his gaze. "I can do my job." He nodded once. "Then do it carefully." She entered the room with a tablet in one hand, and her expression locked down tight. Asher was awake, propped against the pillows, a tray untouched in front of him. Morning light washed across his face, showing the hollows beneath his cheekbones and the silver at his temples. He looked older, sharper, more fragile than the man she had married, and still too much like him. His eyes found her the second she walked in. "There you are." The words were soft, but they sent something trembling through her anyway. "I'm here to check your vitals," she said. "You left yesterday." "I finished my shift." He gave the smallest shake of his head. "No, You left me with half a life and no explanation. Ava set the tablet down. Your blood pressure will rise if you keep talking like that. A faint shadow of a smile touched his mouth. You always did threaten me with science. That smile almost broke her. She moved closer to check the monitor. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck and dropped into someone else's life. His eyes stayed on her face. Did you sleep? That is not your concern. It used to be. There it was again. That gentle tone. That dangerous warmth. The old version of him moving through a room where the present was bleeding to death. Ava clipped the cuff around his arm with more force than necessary. That was a long time ago. Not for me. She froze for a second. He went quiet, too. The truth sat between them, heavy and impossible. For him, she had kissed him yesterday, and then vanished. For her, 5 long years had passed since the man she loved had turned cold and called her a mistake. When I look at you, he said finally, voice rough, I feel like I've been dragged out of a dream and told the best part of my life was a lie. Ava kept her eyes on the blood pressure reading. It wasn't a lie. His breath caught. Then why did it end? She removed the cuff and stepped back. I'm not having this conversation while you're in recovery. You keep saying that like recovery is the only thing happening here. It is the only thing that matters right now. No. His voice sharpened. You matter. What happened to us matters. Ava picked up the chart again, because if she looked at him too long, she might crack. You are missing several years of memory. Your brain is healing. Pushing too hard could do damage. Do you think I divorced you because I stopped loving you? The question landed clean and hard. She stared at the chart without seeing it. Yes, she said at last. I did think that. He looked stunned, then angry. Not at her, at the shape of the world itself. I would never. You did. His jaw tightened. I don't remember. I know. You keep saying that like it explains anything. It doesn't explain it. Ava's voice rose before she could stop it. It just doesn't erase it. Silence filled the room. The rain tapped softly against the window. At last he said, quieter now. Was I cruel? Ava's throat closed. She thought of the penthouse windows, the hard shine of the city below, his hand adjusting a cufflink while he said their marriage had been an error. Yes, she whispered. Asher closed his eyes. For the first time since waking, he looked truly sick. Ava hated that some part of her still wanted to comfort him. Before she could say anything, the door opened. Evelyn Vale stepped in, carrying expensive flowers that looked wrong in a hospital room. Her gaze flicked from Ava to Asher and sharpened at once. I was told you were alone. Ava straightened. I'm working. Evelyn's mouth tightened. Of course you are. Asher opened his eyes and looked between them. Mother, did you know she was here all this time? Evelyn set the flowers down with careful control. I knew she worked in this hospital. Ava turned slowly. You knew? Evelyn met her eyes without a trace of shame. I saw no reason to disturb anyone's life. Ava felt the room tilt. 5 years. 5 years in the same building. And his mother had known. Asher's face hardened. You knew she was here and said nothing? You were unconscious, Evelyn said, and she was no longer your wife. No longer my wife because of what? He demanded. What happened? Evelyn's expression grew colder. You made a decision, a wise one, at the time. Ava went still. Asher stared at his mother. At the time? But Evelyn did not answer. She only looked at Ava with that old, sharp disapproval, and in that one glance, Ava felt it again. There was something she knew, something she had known all along. And as Ava stood there, with rain whispering at the glass, and Asher's confused eyes moving between them, One terrible thought began to rise in her chest. Maybe the truth about the end of their marriage had not died in the crash after all. Maybe it had been standing in the room with them from the very beginning. Ava did not wait for Evelyn to say another word. She finished her checks, handed the chart to the day nurse, and walked out of room 417 before her face gave anything away. Her steps were steady until she reached the empty supply room at the end of the hall. Then she shut the door, pressed both hands to the counter, and stared at the metal cabinet in front of her, while her breathing turned thin. Something about the way Evelyn had said it would not leave her alone. A wise decision, not a painful one, not a tragic one, not something forced by heartbreak. Wise. As if ending a marriage had been strategy, as if Ava had been a problem to remove. There was a knock on the door a minute later. "Ava?" It was Dr. Mercer. She straightened at once. "I'm fine." "You're in a supply closet." "That does not mean I'm not fine." He opened the door just enough to look in. His expression softened. "Go home for an hour. Get air. I'll cover your rounds." She almost refused. Then she realized her hands were shaking. 30 minutes, she said. Outside, the rain had stopped. The streets around the hospital still gleamed wet and dark, and cold wind rolled off the bay. Ava stood under the awning near the side entrance with a paper cup of tea she had not touched, replaying every detail she could remember from the last months of her marriage. Asher working longer and longer hours. Calls that ended when she entered the room. His mother visiting too often. That hard change in him that had never made sense. The divorce had felt cruel, sudden, deliberate. But now another thought began to creep in. What if it had also been pushed? Her phone buzzed. Helen. She answered on the first ring. "How are my babies?" Ava asked. "Very opinionated," Helen said. "Noah is explaining gravity to the toaster, and Lily has decided her stuffed rabbit needs a blanket fort." Ava closed her eyes at the sound of ordinary life. "I want to keep them home with you tonight." Helen paused. "What happened?" "Nothing I can explain yet." Ava looked back toward the hospital windows. "I just need one more day before things get bigger." Helen's voice softened. "Do what you need to do." That evening, after a long day of avoiding room 417 for anything not strictly necessary, Ava returned for her final check. The hallway was quiet. Most of the lights were dimmed. Nurses moved with softer voices, and the hospital had taken on that strange nighttime calm that never felt peaceful, so much as suspended. She pushed open the door. Asher was awake. He had the bed slightly raised and a notebook in his lap. His hair was still damp from the assisted wash the aides had given him. The scent of clean soap sat beneath the hospital smell, and for one painful second, it reminded her of winter mornings in their old condo before things fell apart. He looked up. "There you are again." Ava stayed near the door. "You need rest." "I tried." He held up the notebook. "Instead, I made a list." That almost made her smile, because of course he had. Asher had always made lists when life stopped making sense. "What kind of list?" "The things I know." His face turned serious. "And the things I don't." She did not mean to move closer, but she did. He looked down at the page. "I know I loved you." His finger shifted lower. "I know I was in an accident. I know I lost 5 years. I know I asked for a divorce. I know I don't remember why." He looked back up, "and I know my mother is hiding something." Ava went still. "You saw that too?" he said. "Yes." "Then tell me what you're thinking." She stared at him for a long moment. "I'm thinking your mother never liked me." "That's not exactly a revelation." "She thought I distracted you." Ava crossed her arms. "She thought I softened you." His mouth tightened. "You did soften me." That was not a compliment in her eyes. No. His gaze sharpened. But did she have anything to do with the divorce? Ava wanted to say no, wanted to keep things simple, wanted one solid truth in a day full of shifting ground. But honesty had already cost them too much. I don't know, she said. I only know she never seemed surprised when you changed. Everyone else was confused. She wasn't. Asher looked away. Rainwater still clung to the outside of the window, catching the city lights in uneven silver lines. She was involved in the company then, he said slowly. More than I wanted. She sat on the board. She pushed hard on decisions that affected public image. Ava felt a chill move through her. Public image? He nodded once. She cared about appearances, legacy, control. He looked back at her. Did something happen? Something with your career? Your research? Ava frowned. What do you mean? You said I asked about your research yesterday. I remembered enough to ask that. What was happening with it? The old ache returned at once. I had a grant, she said quietly. A major one. I was working on neural repair systems, a project that could have changed my career. And 6 months before the divorce, the funding disappeared. She kept her voice flat, but the hurt was still there under it. The lab told me there had been concerns about conflict of interest because I was married to you. A rumor started that Thorn Veil Technologies planned to absorb my work. Asher stared at her. I would never have done that. I know that now. I think I knew it then, too. She swallowed. But the damage was done. The grant collapsed. The project died. His face had gone pale. My mother knew about that? She was on the review board for one of the donor groups. Ava looked at him steadily. At the time, I thought it was a coincidence. Asher's hand tightened around the notebook. No, he said quietly. That doesn't feel like coincidence. A knock cut through the room before either of them could say more. Ava turned. A man in a dark suit stood in the doorway, rain still on his coat collar. He was in his 40s, neat and polished, with the careful look of someone used to entering expensive rooms. Mr. Vale, he said. I'm sorry to disturb you. I'm Grant Mercer, acting CEO of Vale Dynamics. Ava's stomach dropped. Asher's expression went blank in a way she recognized from boardrooms and press conferences. It was his business face, controlled, sharp. You moved quickly, he said. Mercer gave a smooth smile. Your recovery is fortunate news for everyone. Everyone. Not you. Not me. Ava stepped aside, but stayed in the room. Mercer's gaze flicked to her briefly. And you must be the nurse everyone is talking about. Ava Monroe, she said evenly. Recognition flashed across his face. He knew exactly who she was. That alone made her distrust him. Mercer turned back to Asher. The board is pleased you've regained consciousness. There's been a great deal of uncertainty over the years. How thoughtful of them. Mercer ignored the edge in his tone. We'll need to discuss transition plans once you're stronger. Asher leaned back slightly. You've had 5 years to get comfortable in my chair. I imagine this is inconvenient. Mercer's smile thinned, then returned. I've only ever protected the company. Ava felt the word protected scrape across her nerves. Asher must have felt it too. Did you? He asked softly. Mercer adjusted his cuffs. Mr. Vale, I know memory loss can make returning to leadership difficult. There may be things you don't fully understand yet. The room seemed to narrow. Ava watched Asher's face change. Not much, just enough. It was the look of a man hearing a warning inside polite words. Mercer continued. The years before your accident were unstable. You were under tremendous strain. It may be best not to revisit all of it too aggressively. Ava's pulse kicked hard. That was twice now. First Evelyn, now Mercer, both telling him not to look back. Asher's voice turned colder. You seem very interested in what I should not remember. Mercer gave a small laugh. Only concerned for your health. No, Ava said, before she could stop herself. You're concerned about something else. Both men looked at her. Mercer's expression remained polite, but his eyes sharpened. Excuse me? Ava stepped forward. You walked in here talking about transition before asking about his recovery. You've spent 5 minutes implying his memory loss is useful. That doesn't sound like concern. Mercer's smile faded. Asher did not take his eyes off him. I want access to every major board decision made in the last 5 years, every executive compensation review, every internal audit. Mercer's face barely changed, but Ava saw it. The tension, the instant calculation. That can be arranged. Good. Mercer inclined his head. Then I'll leave you to rest. When he was gone, the silence felt charged. Asher looked at the door long after it shut. Something's wrong, he said. Ava nodded. Yes. The next day, the first crack came from a place Ava had not expected. Hospital security called the unit around noon. A woman at reception refused to leave unless she could speak with Ava Monroe in private. She had no appointment, no clear reason, but she kept insisting it was urgent. Ava went downstairs herself. The woman waiting near the chairs was in her late 50s, thin, nervous, with a wrinkled coat and frightened eyes. She clutched her purse with both hands. When she saw Ava, she stood too fast. Mrs. Monroe. Ms. Monroe, Ava corrected gently. Can I help you? The woman looked around the lobby, then lowered her voice. My name is Denise Holloway. I used to work for Evelyn Vale. Ava felt every muscle in her body tighten. Used to? For 11 years. Denise twisted the strap of her purse. I was her executive assistant until 3 years ago. Ava said nothing. Denise swallowed hard. I saw the news that Asher Vale woke up. Then I heard your name from one of the old staff who remembered you. I've been praying about this all night, and I think I need to tell somebody before I lose my nerve. Ava led her to a quieter corner near a window. What do you need to tell me? Denise's eyes filled with shame. The divorce papers. Her voice shook. Mrs. Vale pushed them. She arranged the lawyer. She kept saying it had to be done before the board meeting, before something else broke. Ava's skin went cold. What board meeting? Denise hesitated. There were rumors about a merger, debt exposure, questions about company control if Asher's personal life made him look unstable. Mrs. Vale was furious about the research rumors and the press attention around your marriage. She said you made him emotional, unpredictable. The lobby noise faded into nothing. Ava heard only Denise's voice. She met with him several times behind closed doors. After one meeting, he looked... Denise searched for the word. Destroyed. Like someone had reached inside him and twisted. 2 days later, he ordered the divorce papers. She looked at Ava with helpless regret. I don't know what she said. I only know she wanted you gone. Ava gripped the back of the chair beside her. Why are you telling me this now? Because there's more. Denise fumbled in her purse and pulled out a flash drive. I kept copies of some scheduling records when I left, mostly because I was scared. There was one meeting the week before the divorce. Evelyn Vale, Grant Mercer, and a private investigator. Ava stared at the drive. Her pulse pounded so hard it hurt. Why would they meet with a private investigator? Denise shook her head. I don't know, but I think they were building something, or hiding something. Her voice broke. I should have spoken up then. I was afraid. Ava took the drive with numb fingers. Thank you. Denise nodded, tears bright in her eyes. I'm so sorry. When Ava returned upstairs, her whole body felt cold. She went straight to room 417. Asher looked up at once. What happened? She closed the door. Then she held up the flash drive. I think, she said, trying to keep her voice steady, your mother and Grant Mercer may have had more to do with our divorce than either of us knew. He stared at her. For one long second, neither of them moved. Then he slowly set aside the hospital tray in front of him. Ava, he said quietly, tell me everything. So she did. The Grant sabotage, Denise Holloway, the private meeting, the flash drive now sitting like a loaded weapon in her palm. When she finished, Asher looked less shocked than furious. A deep, dangerous kind of fury that came from beneath the weakness and confusion and reached all the way back to the man who had built an empire. I need a lawyer, he said. You need rest. I need both. Ava stepped closer to the bed, lowering her voice. If your mother manipulated you, if Grant Mercer was involved, then whatever happened back then may not be the whole truth. His jaw tightened. That doesn't undo what I said to you. No! Her own throat tightened now. It doesn't. He looked at her, and for the first time since waking, there was no confusion in his eyes, only grief. I did that to you, he said. Whatever pressure they put on me, whatever lie they told me, I still let it come through my mouth. Ava wanted to stay angry. It would have been easier, but anger had never been the whole truth. Noah is like you, she said before she could stop herself. The room went silent. Asher's whole body stilled. Ava had not planned to say it. Not like that. Not yet. But the words were out now, hanging between them with a life of their own. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Noah. Ava closed her eyes for a second, and then she knew there was no going back. When you left me, she said slowly, I found out 3 weeks later that I was pregnant. The color drained from his face. Pregnant, he repeated. With twins. His breath caught so sharply she instinctively moved toward the monitor. Ava! He said her name like prayer, like pain, like he was trying to understand how one word could hold an entire lost world. Yes, she whispered. A boy and a girl. Noah and Lily. They're 4. He stared at her with naked shock. Then heartbreak poured into his face so fast it looked like something breaking open. I have children. The words were not joy. Not yet. They were grief. They're yours, Ava said. And I tried to reach you. I called your office. Your number was dead. Your assistant told me you wanted no contact. By the time I learned about the accident, months had passed and Her voice shook. I didn't know what to do with the wreckage of everything. Asher's eyes filled. They're mine, he said again, like he needed to hear it twice to survive it. Ava nodded once. He looked down at his hands. I missed everything. Yes, she did not say it. He already knew. He lifted his face again, and there were tears standing in his eyes now, unhidden and helpless. Do they know about me? Ava thought of Lily asking if feelings needed snacks. Noah studying her face too closely. The framed photo she had kept hidden too long. They know they have a father, she said. They just don't know he woke up yet. Asher shut his eyes. A tear slid down his cheek. Ava had once seen him stand in front of investors worth billions without blinking. She had seen him win rooms full of sharks with one calm sentence. She had seen him grieve his father in silence because he did not know how to fall apart in front of anyone. But she had never seen him like this, broken wide open. When? He asked. She swallowed. When what? When do I get to meet them? The question hit the center of her chest. She should have said, not yet. She should have protected the twins from the shock, and herself from the ache already rising like floodwater. But all she could think of was those small gray eyes, those curious little hands. Their father lying in this bed with tears on his face because he had lost years he could never get back. Soon, she said. Asher opened his eyes. It was not a promise, not fully, but it was enough to make hope flicker there, fragile and dangerous. Ava looked at him, at the man who had shattered her life, at the father her children had never known, at the patient she had brought back from the dark, and she realized the story she thought had ended 5 years ago had only just begun. If you believe stories still matter, go ahead and hit subscribe, Stories Beyond the Porch. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Thanks for watching.